Hello and welcome to the big picture. The unprecedented move by an anti-terrorism court in Rawalpindi in Pakistan to indict former President General Pervez Musharraf of the assassination of Benazir Bhutto has once again brought back to focus the curious politics of Pakistan. The indictment, which comes in the background of rumors that he may have had cut a deal with the present government to leave Pakistan, has however been negated by this indictment. Meanwhile, though his supporters are dismissing the indictment, which carries a possible death sentence or life imprisonment, it's a very serious development, unquestionably. What will be the impact of this indictment in Pakistan, and how will it affect the politics and the dynamics of relations between the army, government and the judiciary? These and many other questions have cropped up now. We will discuss all this today with Vivek, Katju, former ambassador and a foreign policy analyst, Vinod Sharma, political editor of the Hindustan Times, and Prof. Anuradha, Chenoy of the School of International Studies, JNU. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Katju, when President Musharraf came back to Pakistan, was there some kind of a deal? And didn't he expect all these things to happen, that he'll have to face all these charges? Why did he come back to Pakistan? And what was the deal behind him coming back to Pakistan?
No, there was no deal.
Okay.
He came back to Pakistan in spite of the best efforts of the Pakistan Army leadership, his family, and many other influential people advising him not to come back to Pakistan. In fact, the army went to the extent of invoking the Saudis to put some kind of pressure on him. And I have reasons to believe that the Saudis intervened. But still, and you know the Saudis are very important in Pakistan's affairs, but still he came back to Pakistan. Now, it's a little bit, people feel that he came back to Pakistan because of the fact that he wanted to show that he is not a coward. Those are what his friends say. But others say that he did so because he is living in a world of his own now. He thought that there will be large crowds to support. Now, all that proved false. The next point. His presence in Pakistan is obviously a source of great embarrassment to the army. And the army leadership has had to go to the cantonments to meet with the soldiery, to impress upon them the actual facts that they tried to prevent him from coming back. And it is because of the army leadership's intervention, on the ground that his security must be assured, that he is living in some degree of comfort and his own home has been declared as a sub-jail. Now, what about Nawaz Sharif? I personally think that despite all that he may really want, in terms of getting some kind of a personal satisfaction in Musharraf's troubles, he himself would not want Musharraf to stay there because he's an embarrassment to everyone. The difficulty is, last point, the difficulty is that Musharraf set conditions which none of them could accept. And it got caught up in this. Earlier he was refusing to go back, to leave. Now he is setting these conditions. And I think events are now overtaking everyone.
Absolutely. Professor Chenoy, do you agree? Do you also agree with Mr. Katju that it was just the bravado on his part to have come back here and without any safe deal with anybody? And now that he has been indicted, you think that any other deal can be struck at this point of now for him to return to go back away from Pakistan?
Well, number one, I think I believe that he had very large political ambitions. And he really believed that the King's party would at least have that much power in the elections where it could form part of coalition politics, which did not materialize. He had a larger than image, of himself.
Larger than life
image about himself. And so he came back, he set up the party, etc. But the other thing is that he has, number one, pretty deep enemies within the judiciary. Earlier, the Pakistan judiciary very often collaborated with the army, justifying Hudud laws, Sharia laws, even extra constitutional measures, etc., which the army did. So they did indict. But he personally, because of his arrest of, the Chief Justice at that time, so this balance which was there has been pretty disturbed. But at the same time, we mustn't forget, I think, that he's still in the terrorist court. There are going to be a number of steps. It's going to take time.
Yeah,
and the deep state of which the army is part of, that silent state in Pakistan behind the facade of the state, I think they could still do something to avoid this embarrassment. Because I agree to the fact that he is an embarrassment for the army. He has enemies within the judiciary. But at the same time, there is also a desperate attempt in Pakistan to revive institutions.
Right.
So they may not really intervene in having too open a negotiated deal.
Vinod, you think that, when two things. One, you know Musharraf pretty well, you've interacted with him. You think it was a bravado on his part. Second thing is now that the actual indictment itself, saying that he has been involved and he knew what was happening, but he didn't take enough steps to protect Benazir, and that is why he has been charged and he has been found guilty on 3 charges.
Well, when he returned to Pakistan, I remember having written that he's back, but is he really home? And I don't think he's really home. I'd agree with Ambassador Katju that this man is given to some degree of proclivity to play to the gallery. The first statement he made upon arrival in Karachi was, then where are the people who said that I will never return to Pakistan? That's the first statement he made.
मैं आ गया.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that he is, in my assessment,
Did he expect the same kind of response from the people that Benazir got when she came back?
he is politically naive. You see, he is a man who has been a commando, and he thinks that every case is open and shut. Now, in politics, it doesn't work that way. I would go along with others to say that he is a deep embarrassment for the army leadership. And in that context, I would like to recall the statement that Kayani made in the Benazir case to the UN Commission that visited and that investigated the case, rejecting the supposition that Benazir was done in by the Tehreek-e-Taliban in Pakistan, and that supposition was based on one intercept, telephone intercept, and he said, well, it's too much of a long shot. Indeed, Benazir, Hamid Mir's, the famous television anchor Hamid Mir's brother Amir Mir has done a book on Benazir, and he had a long interaction with Benazir before her death and certain disclosures that she made to him. And that includes her suspicion vis-a-vis Musharraf, her suspicion vis-a-vis the King's Party leadership of Pervez Elahi and Chaudhry Shujaat, and also an email in which she...
this email was Mark Siegel.
Mark Siegel was to depose as a witness,
right,
which he hasn't yet.
And he also had received a mail from...
Yeah, Benazir. He has received a mail, and he also... Benazir appears to have told him that before she returned to Pakistan in 2008, a couple of months before that, in weeks preceding that, there were reports to this effect during that period as well, that Musharraf did not want her to return to Pakistan. You see, her return to Pakistan was part of a deal, as per my information, which was brokered by the Americans, because Musharraf at that time was a military dictator of one of its kind, in the sense that he was all powerful, but he had no political backing at all of any mass party. You see, say for instance, Mr. Ziaul Haq, who was a more ruthless dictator than Musharraf can ever be, he enjoyed unstinted support of the Jamaat-e-Islami,
right.
And he could marshal their cadres to whip up sentiments from the streets. But Musharraf had just the Pakistan Muslim League Qaid backing him, which was a party which always made a fortune of siding with the army whenever it suited them. So this was the deal. But Benazir was too strong a personality, and so was Musharraf. So there was indeed a clash of temperaments and objectives. And she after the first attempt on her life, she is believed to have confided in many people that she feared death threat from important people in the establishment, including some rogue elements in the army, in the intelligence setup, and also politics, her political rival. But I personally feel, now I think we are overreacting to this. What has happened in that court is that a charge sheet has been brought by the investigators and charges are sought to be framed by the court. Now, this doesn't mean that he has been held guilty. And in my personal assessment, the evidence against him is too thin for him to be convicted in any court of law in Pakistan.
We have Professor Zafar Jaspal, a political analyst on the phone line from Islamabad. Professor Jaspal, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is sitting in here in India, we feel that this indictment looks very big, looks something very important. What is it that the people in Pakistan feel about what has happened in the anti-terrorism court, and is there a feeling that this is something which can lead to something to General Musharraf being found guilty of this?
Yeah, there is a general perception. First of all, people were not expecting that he will be directly convicted with these kind of information or these kind of things.
Right.
But now these things are unearthing. And the most important thing is that they are taking place now. And during the 5 years of the Zardari's regime or PPP government, there was not much ahead on these things.
Right.
So this is the first question which is raising in the mind of people that, A, whether this is a political kind of thing that Musharraf is here, is anti-government or anti-person like Nawaz is in the power, and in that way they are indirectly engaging him, or Musharraf was really involved in this. But in a way, what we find at the end of the day, everyone believes that in this case, it will be difficult to charge Musharraf because he was the president of Pakistan and he was not the sole responsible for the entire security, and he had already informed them that there are a number of these things that you have to take into account. And Benazir and her own security apparatus was at that time there. So naturally, at this face value, when we look this intake, it seems that something has big happened and unexpected happened. But on the other side, when we see in the nitty-gritty that how the case will proceed and what will be the sort of thing, I think this will take a time. It should be not as easy as it seems today.
Okay, Professor Jaspal, one more question. It is felt here also by all the panelists here feel that General Musharraf is an embarrassment to the army. Is that the way the army looks at him at this point of time there? And is there something that the army would do to avoid him getting convicted? And is this also some kind of a clash between the judiciary and the army? How is it looked at there?
I think that in this context, my perception is, or what my understanding by meeting, the day he came, since that day to date, the army is distinct from his cases. It's understandable, of course, he was the ex-army chief. A number of the army people were benefited, or what you call it, certainly had an affiliation with him being their former army chief. But at the same time, I didn't see much, you can say, support from Musharraf or in his cases. For instance, I personally met a few people, and when I asked them the same question, not now, I'm talking when he came, he was arrested, and he was put behind the house arrest.
Right.
And at that time, just to check the pulse, there are not much forthcoming to make any commitment or statement, because people are here now saying within the army people wanted to distance from the political or these kind of thing. And secondly, they are also aware that 2013, not 2000, what we call in 1999. So they know their limits, they are involved, and they are distancing from Musharraf. And there was a group of people within the armed forces who were not definitely happy with his policies.
Okay.
So certainly you can say that embarrassment, when you say a word, definitely if your ex-chief has been tried and he is a little bit humiliated, definitely it creates a bad, you can say, bad taste among the organization. But frankly speaking, when I'm meeting the people, I didn't hear anyone talking about or anyone discussing him. For them, he is the, you can say, lost or politician, and his era is over.
Okay. Mr. Katju, it's interesting what he says that they're still underplaying the whole thing. It is not as serious as Vinod also was talking about. But the question is, is this some kind of a the legal system, the rule of law trying to assert itself over the army? Is it something like that?
Look, I don't think that we should read too much with regard to the institutional balance within Pakistan on account of this case. It's sui generis, for one. Now, the army today is somewhat bruised. It's
Bruised?
It's a bruised army.
Yeah, absolutely.
The image has taken a bit of a battering.
Right.
It's involved in all kinds of internal...
Bit is an understatement.
Well, it's involved in anti-terrorist measures, movements, but it hasn't made much headway. Within the army itself, there's a feeling that at American behest, on account of America, they are fighting their own people. So there's this unhappiness. But despite that, and second, one more point, there's going to be a change in leadership unless something dramatic happens. Kayani will go and a new chief will come. So at the moment things are, I won't say turbulent, but the things are a little unsettled in this institutional structure. In this, Musharraf's case is a distraction. No one wants this. And I can tell you that this might be utilized, it might not succeed, but it might be utilized to make another effort to see that he goes out of the country. And
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Ambassador Katju is right. May I tell you one thing, that on television channels, Musharraf is caricatured on a daily basis.
Yeah.
He's made to, he's projected as some kind of a clown, so to speak. Some of the, jokes that are being, cracked at his cost, I think, are unfair, grossly unfair. But still, he's made to sit, somebody dressed up like Musharraf and with a lawyer by his side. A lawyer is a bigger fool than the client, and it's trying to show that he's more bright than the client. That kind of a situation. Now, I quite agree that the leadership will change, not just in the army over the next couple of months, but also in the judiciary.
Yeah. Right.
Now, you see, Musharraf did nothing extraordinary by Pakistani standards by trying to arm twist the judiciary, the highest judiciary. But he did it in a way that was outrageous. I can quote a prominent human rights activist who is also a very well-regarded journalist. I can't name him because I don't have his permission, but he told me, he says, army has n number of times manipulated our judiciary since our history, over our history. But no army chief called the Chief Justice to his house and ask him to resign, or he'll be put under house arrest, and then appoint somebody else in his place. So it was exactly the way he returned to Pakistan, the way he gave marching orders to the judiciary, the way he often talked to India saying that Kashmir can be resolved overnight, that it's an open and shut case. In the same vein, he came to Pakistan, he went to Pakistan, hoping that he'd be able to capture the imagination of the people, but without realizing that today the debate over drones cannot be done or conducted without a mention of Mr. Musharraf, because it was during his tenure that the clearance was given, and that is where he is now more of a figure who's despised, or who is subject,
as you said, a caricature. Let me get Professor Zafar. You think that what Mr. Katju and both Vinod Sharma feel, that there can still be some kind of a deal to take him out, to send him out of Pakistan?
Look, there is a very important thing. When we look about the Pakistan's judiciary, it is not shy to punish him, because we have seen a number of the Pakistani armed forces people, they are facing the trial, especially with reference to the missing people. So this is one side of the picture. But if you see practically, my own understanding is that, of course, you can indict him, you can say that the trial should be done, but proving anything against him, for example, his 99 action was endorsed by the parliament itself, And in the second case, when we go for the second emergency, when it happened, at that time the Islam minister was in the present government's federal minister, so it will be not a possibility. My understanding is that Musharraf came with a calculation here, that he came here, that he will face the charges, and he will be, with the passage of time, he will get rid of all these kind of the charges, and he will be a free man. For example, Bukti's case, he was the head of the state. As the head of the state, if he's ordering something, he was not personally involved. So engaging personally and convicting him, I think it will be a big judicial challenge. So it will be not, they can only delay it, and after 1 or 2 or 3 years, if the case will continue, my understanding is he will walk out as a free man, and because he has a number of as a former president, at that time, whatever the action was taken, he was president of Pakistan, so number of the actions cannot be taken for a trial. So that is the way we have to look at it. If the media is reporting, they have to also take the sense of how the judiciary acts or how the rule of law should be maintained. My understanding is that sooner or later he managed to get rid of all these kind of cases, not because of the military influence, because of the legal system of Pakistan, or because of the way how the lawyers will be going to debate these legal issues.
Okay. Chenoy, you think, it's very interesting what he says, that he's quite confident that he may walk out free as a free man, because he says the judicial system itself will not be able to find him guilty.
I agree, because the judicial system there itself is under question today. If you see Iftikhar Chaudhary and the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, etc., they themselves have given themselves immunity from corruption cases.
Yes.
They've been charged with huge amounts of corruption, the Chief Justice's son. So all these institutions, they can have deals. It's clear. I think the people in Pakistan are quite clear that I don't think they have faith in any of these. So any kind of deal, and I think Vivek is right, some kind of deal can be struck. Or at the same time, the judicial process, like even in our country, can go on for years and years.
Go
this is a trial court.
That is precisely the point. As Vinod was saying, if this becomes a caricature thing, then can the army afford this continuing embarrassment day after day or week after week?
But what is that?
And you see,
what is the option the army has?
No, that is, you see, the ball has always been in Musharraf's court.
Right.
If he now agrees that for some reason or the other, which the court will accept, that he can go out and there can be a trial then by all kinds of methods, video conferencing, all that is.
No, but Katju, one thing, the stage at which Musharraf sought to bulldoze the judiciary was very, very interesting, because that was the point when judiciary started seeking the whereabouts of the missing people. And most of these missing people were missing on account of the intelligence organizations and on account of the army's actions across Pakistan, most notably in Balochistan and in NWFP. And it was at that stage that Musharraf tried to change the judiciary and bring in pliable judges. This is point one. Point two, that the judiciary in Pakistan today, despite the initial celebration and the very high regard in which they came to be held, now its image has declined in recent months, with PPP taking strong exception to what they call as the judiciary's bias against that party. Even the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf has problems with the judiciary now, and the judiciary actually began governing that country, interfering in matters that clearly, amounted to transcending their brief.
I thought you were talking of some other judiciary too.
No. So I think that whenever, and it happens, Ambassador, it happens wherever your political establishment weakens, other institutions try to add.
Yes.
Now Nawaz Sharif, he gave an address to the nation kind of yesterday, and he came in under heavy flack for talking mostly about the problems but not offering any solutions. So governing Pakistan is not an easy task.
No, that's true.
And no ruler would like to have a problem which is eminently avoidable.
That's exactly the point.
And I think that is where the hope of Mr. Pervez Musharraf rests. He may walk a free man and live the rest of his life in cooler climes in Europe.
One second. During the campaign, the elections, Nawaz Sharif was very clear that, if he comes to power, he will bring Musharraf and try him for high treason and all those things. But you think all these things have now will be forgotten?
I think election rhetoric is election rhetoric.
So, but this is not political revenge. What is
Look,
happening?
I'm sure Nawaz Sharif and his friends and his family are fairly happy that this guy is being dragged through the mud. I mean, that's obvious. But I don't think Nawaz Sharif himself can afford a major distraction at this stage.
Even the PPP wouldn't go beyond a point.
No one wants
Rahman Malik was the security in charge of Benazir Bhutto.
Yes.
When he was the in charge of security of Benazir Bhutto, Rahman Malik, who became Federal Minister of Interior later. And he said, and he was on record, and I think I was there in Pakistan on the 28th of that year, December 27th, she was shot. He said that, he forgot to check the jammers were not working, I mean, the point is that, there was failure on myriad fronts.
So it was a security lapse?
Look, obviously it was a security lapse. But the real issue at the moment is, if this indictment will strengthen the hands of the politicians vis-a-vis the army,
that is the point.
I think that is the crucial question that we must be discussing. On that, I think, even though I said the army is bruised, on that I think what in the areas that the army believes that it must have a decisive voice, security, nuclear, including nuclear policies, India, America policies, Afghanistan, there I think this indictment notwithstanding, the army's
control over
the army will not give way.
Well, but I think Professor Zafar, what do you have to say on this? You think this indictment is some way, showing the superiority of the political class over the army, or the army still has a hold on them?
Yeah, look, first of all, I want to make it clear, because when I was earlier speaking, one of the participants said that the judiciary is incapable or maybe not able, or it's losing its, you can say, popularity. This is not an issue. What I meant was that proving any case against President Musharraf, former President Musharraf, is difficult in the judiciary, because when he was acting as a president of Pakistan, by constitution, he had certain immunities. And secondly, what his emergencies or martial law, these were already endorsed by the court. So that is one thing. Now coming back towards this, that of course
quickly, Professor Zafar,
political elite is very much concerned about its supremacy, and they're trying to manage it. And of course, this is the way. One cannot deny the struggle between the previous ruling organization of Pakistan and the new ruling political elite. Certainly the tussle of war. It is there, but at the moment it seems that army is behaving, and it thinks that the political elite or political forces of the parliament, it is supreme, and army has to work on its direction. This is today's you can take, but maybe tomorrow what the things happen, I cannot say on.
Okay. Yes, last word very quickly.
You see, Pakistan army indeed will have to come to terms and find a meeting ground with the political leadership. Though Nawaz Sharif is in a tight corner on account of the many problems that he faces, but Nawaz Sharif is one Prime Minister Pakistan has who perhaps in terms of power, in terms of importance and stature, is the best since they've had Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. And I think that is where the crux of the situation lies.
On that note, I think we have to end. We completely run out of time. But any discussion on Pakistan is very interesting, and there will always be various points of view. We will wait and watch what General Pervez Musharraf's fate will be in the course of time. But we'll keep a close watch. Thanks to all my guests, Professor Zafar Jaspal from Pakistan, Vivek, Katju, Anuradha, Chenoy, and Vinod Sharma. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on the Big Picture same time tomorrow.